So in Lebanon, we are currently paying around $80 per ton for waste disposal, and it's inappropriate waste disposal. This is a problem that has been building up for the past 14 years, where we've continuously put up temporary landfills rather than coming up with holistic solutions that are sustainable. So what's happening now until the end of the year, waste is being baled and put in these temporary landfills right at the Mediterranean Sea, which is partially an environmental hazard, but also very expensive for what it is. And of course, this is not just Lebanon. Over 70% of the world's waste is still either open dumped or being landfilled. It's about 50-50 between the two. So it's really a global crisis, and especially in the region, we continue to face this. Even in our new development, we continue to look at landfilling as primary solutions rather than the end results. So usually what happens when we have a crisis in Lebanon, the first reaction municipalities have is to start looking at recyclables, recovering plastic, cans, all these kinds of items. But if we look at the composition of our waste, which is very similar in the region, most of our waste is organic, 52% is organic, and only 36% are recyclables. And in terms of the reason for that is quite different, but essentially organic waste is quite difficult to handle. We cannot store it for a long time. It produces odors. It also can have an environmental and health hazard and produces liquids as well. So handling it is more difficult. So usually when municipalities try to do an initiative, they go for the easier approach. So over 50% we said, but in Lebanon's case, only 15% is being composted. And essentially, why is that? Well, what's happening for the case of Lebanon is most waste management facilities developed will use something called a trommel screen that has an 8-centimeter opening. And after opening the bags, the waste goes into the trommel screen. Everything smaller than 8 centimeters goes through and is considered organic. And as a result, of course, this is what our compost piles look like. So obviously, we cannot use this to produce a fertilizer or reuse it. And the result, of course, most of that composted material ends up being used as stop covers for landfills and not in agriculture. Where it is used in agriculture, it is actually hazardous due to the heavy metals in it and the contamination. So all waste is commingled. We don't really have waste sorting at source, which is truly what the solution lies in. And we're ignoring a very big opportunity. Lebanon is importing about $4.8 million worth of compost every single year, in addition to $42 million worth of chemical fertilizers. Now, these are two opportunities that we can work on to internalize this production through our waste. So the opportunities is there. And this is why we started Baladi in 2017 as a social enterprise that focuses on converting any bio-waste anywhere into a bioresource. Other than the economic aspects, of course, there's a lot of social and environmental benefits to working with composting and recovery from habitat protection, a reduction of greenhouse gases, ground and surface water protection, as well as having a circular economy and job creation from it. But also the usage of compost really helps improve the soil fertility rather than using chemical fertilizers as well. So what do we usually do? We focus a lot on sorting at source. This is a picture in my house. The focus essentially is to use two-bag systems where we separate the organics. When we finish our plate, we simply scrape it in, or when we're peeling, and then everything else goes in the second bin. The toilet bag goes inside the main bag, but doesn't actually get close to the organics. And the way we incentivize people to adapt our solutions is in the collection procedure. We will collect the organics frequently, but the recyclables infrequently. That means if you don't sort, you're going to have your organic waste sit in your recycling bin for the whole week. This strategy has helped us a lot incentivize people to work on sorting at source. So what we do usually when we start working with the municipality, we raise awareness. We go door to door, provide them with the small bin that you saw in the previous picture. We've done this for over 12,000 households. And with the two of the municipalities we're working with, out of the three, we were able to reach 60 to 80% sorting at source, which is miraculous for us. Like I said, we're working with 3 municipalities, and our key focus is decentralized, low-tech, low-cost, and locally integrated solutions. Really using solutions that fit our region, not really imported solutions from European or US-based solutions. So far in the past 2 years, we've been able to process around 3,000 tons, produce 1,000 tons of compost and reuse it, and divert about 30 metric tons of CH4 from the environment, which is about 20 times more polluting than CO2. What we did, the way we approach municipalities, after the ministry asked municipalities to tell them what they want to do with their waste, how they want to address it, we went to over 200 municipalities and gave them free studies, essentially, on how to manage their waste. We signed a contract with them saying that if we find them financing, we are guaranteed to do the operation for them for 2 years and do a handover over those 2 years so they can eventually become independent. Like I said, we do it for free and we provide them this basic study that tells them their operational cost, how much it's going to be eventually per ton, how much do they have to put in initial investment. So recently what we did, there was a financing program by Madad and the Italian Development Agency. We identified the municipalities that are most relevant and the most vulnerable, and we went and communicated with them, signed these contracts, and now we have 3 federations next year that we'll be working with, serving around 250,000 individuals, which account for about 4% of the country's population, including the refugees. Moving towards the technology aspect, traditionally, most of the Arab region, from what I've seen so far, relies on these US methods called windrow turners. It's a big machine, expensive, imported, that uses a lot of space. You can see there's a lot of wasted space and does not have the environmental controls necessary for the small land availability we have, especially in Lebanon. But nonetheless, we still apply this technology so commonly. What we work on is a technology or a technique called aerated static pile, which means that we don't actually move the pile, but we set up piping under the pile and we force air inside of it, or we suck air out in order to provide the aeration necessary. This method has a lot of advantages. The first one is we can capture the liquids effectively and reuse them in the pile rather than creating a contaminating leachate. And also we can channel all the air into a biofilter. So we can put the system actually much closer to homes, which is necessary in Lebanon. And another aspect to this approach is that it's very compact, space efficient, and there's no machine that you imported that if we have to replace a part, we have to wait for another part to come in. It's not very expensive and can be constructed locally, essentially. For some commercial establishments, we set up solutions on site. So far, we received 1 contract for building an on-site treatment for a slaughterhouse. This is something that we recently developed and will be executing by the end of the year. And as well as a military base of UNIFIL to have an on-site treatment. The main difference is one that we pre-construct and install on-site, and the second one we build on-site immediately. In January, we'll have our first facility. This is actually a facility in New York, but it's going to be a similar setup using the ASP technique, and we'll be servicing restaurants, grocery stores, industrial establishments like slaughterhouses, in order to provide them a cheap, affordable service to process their organic waste. But how can we do it in an affordable way? It's actually by eliminating some of the waste. What we do is we set up container systems on site that start the composting process. That way we don't have to collect every day, and we don't have to have an odor problem, but also because of the composting process, we lose a lot of the water. 80 to 90% of organic waste is water. So we lose a lot of the water on site. So we achieve 60% volume reduction, and we only have to collect it twice per month. This way we can give a cost-effective service. So we signed now a contract with Carrefour. I'm sure there's a lot of Carrefour all over the region. The contract with Carrefour is that we will take waste from different industrial establishments and all the waste from all the Carrefour facilities, and then we will sell it back as a packaged product to Carrefour for them to cover their service costs. That means we'll have access to all their retail stores, but also access to all the farmers that sell them produce. So that way, before producing the compost even, we already have secured the contract to sell it. And we also have outside partners, landscaping companies that also buy the compost from us. So it's really important for me to tell you how it all started. Actually, we got a small fund from an angel investor, about $25,000. And this is really how we started the company, building small boxes for homes in rural areas. But then we realized most of the city cannot use this. Not everybody has a garden. So we developed a solution called the Earth Cube. It's fully enclosed, made out of a reused material, and uses the same technology of aerated static pile, where we push air into the system. We have a biofilter. It's installed under a building and can process the waste of 30 people. We did this on a larger scale. We've installed 50 units so far, and next year we'll be installing around 100. But to be frank, the solution is a little expensive. So it only is accessible to those who have some kind of privilege. This is why now we're looking at the investment to create this app where we will set up bins all over the country, all over the city mostly, and people can subscribe a subscription of $5 a month and can access any of the bins next to them. By scanning the code, they'll be able to access the bin, and we come collect the waste for them. This way, we make it affordable. We don't have to rely on government to bring the interventions, especially in big cities where it's quite difficult to get big contracts to address the waste management crisis. So what happens as a result is when the bin fills up, we come and collect it, take it to our treatment site, and do a quality control, package it, sell it back to farmers, which in the end will be providing a cleaner source of food for the community. But of course, there's something we have to take into consideration is maybe farmers don't want to use our compost. Maybe it's chemical fertilizers that they prefer. This is why we work also directly with farmers to produce the compost and develop a soil recipe for them based on their needs, on the analysis of their soil, to see exactly how much compost they need. And what we've been able to do with one farmer here is in 1 year reduce their fertilization cost by 50% and bring them in an extra cash of $5,000 annually, which is a lot for them. This is our team, and we have a series of advisors, local and foreign, based both technical and as well on a business level. And we've also won a few awards in the region for our green initiatives. Now, how can we grow this? We've achieved something in Lebanon and we're growing in Lebanon, but how can we do this on a regional level? Well, we believe it's through partnership. These are our future markets that we're looking at: Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt, and each one in a different recipe. But the key focus of each one of them is that we find the partner locally, we bring in the knowledge, we bring in the technology, we bring in our model, and they will be the operators. So we're not looking at expanding directly into other countries, but exchanging the knowledge to other startups like ours or other established businesses in the community. I want to end this with one basic message. Somebody today mentioned that you mentioned that most of the solutions that are coming up in the region in technology were developed by youth, startups, and I want to focus on how much we will most likely be the change makers of the community. But for it to actually become something of scale, it needs influential people like you who are well established in ministries, well established in government agencies to be the enablers of these solutions. So I encourage you all to open your doors to the startups in your community, involve them. They usually are willing to do the work for free because they're very passionate about it. And I believe that you can all make an impact through working with startups. Thank you so much.